They walked across his land for less than 5 minutes, and that was enough for them. One of them stopped, looked around, then shook his head. "This land is worthless." The others didn't disagree. Dry soil, cracked ground, no visible water, nothing that looked promising. One man kicked the dirt lightly. "Can't grow anything here," he said. Another added, "Not even worth the effort." The farmer stood a few steps behind them, silent, listening. A third man pulled out a paper, ran a few quick numbers. "Best I can offer," he said, "is a very low price. Not even close to fair." But they weren't trying to be fair, because in their eyes, there was nothing here. "You won't get a better deal," one of them added. The farmer didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't try to convince them. He just looked out across the land. The same land they had already decided was useless. "Think about it," the man said. Then they turned and walked back toward their vehicles. One of them laughed quietly. "Some people just don't know when to let go." The engines started. Dust rose. And within seconds, they were gone, leaving behind nothing but silence, and a piece of land no one wanted. The farmer stood there alone. Then slowly, he knelt down, picked up a handful of soil, looked at it carefully, like he saw something no one else did, because a few months later, that same land would become the one everyone was fighting to get. Before we get into what happened next, make sure to subscribe to our channel and join our YouTube family. The engines faded into the distance. Dust settled slowly over the dry ground. Silence returned. The farmer stayed where he was, still holding the soil in his hand. He let it fall back to the ground, watched it closely, then stood up, looked across the land again. Same cracked surface, same dry patches. To them, it was worthless. To him, it wasn't. He turned and walked toward his old pickup truck, parked near the edge of the field. Inside, on the passenger seat, a folded map, worn, used. He picked it up, opened it, lines drawn across it, marked areas, notes written in the corners, not random, planned. He traced one of the lines with his finger, from one edge of the land to the other, then nodded slightly, like everything was exactly where it needed to be. Back in town, the same men who had walked his land sat inside a small office. Papers spread across the table. "Easy decision," one of them said. "Not worth investing in." Another nodded. "We'll find better options." They moved on quickly, because for them, it was just another piece of land. Nothing special, nothing important. Back at the field, the farmer grabbed a shovel from the back of his truck, walked to a specific spot, not random, chosen. He pushed the shovel into the ground. Hard soil, but not impossible. He kept digging, slow, steady, not trying to prove anything, just following a plan. Minutes passed. Then, the sound changed. Subtle, different. He stopped, looked down, then cleared the dirt more carefully. Something underneath. Not visible yet, but close. He kept going, because while everyone else had already decided, he was just getting started. The soil wasn't the same anymore. It felt different, softer. The farmer slowed down. More careful now. He pushed the shovel in again. But this time, he didn't force it. He cleared the dirt by hand, layer by layer, until something changed. The color. Darker. Richer. He paused. Touched it. Not dry. Different. He looked around. Then back at the ground. Then continued. A few more inches. And then, there it was. A faint moisture. Barely visible. But enough. The farmer didn't smile. didn't react. He just nodded once. Because this wasn't a surprise. This was confirmation. Back in town, the same group sat inside a cafe. Talking. Relaxed. Glad we passed on that land, one said. Another laughed. Yeah, waste of time. They sipped their coffee. Moved on to other deals. Because as far as they were concerned, that land didn't matter anymore. Back at the field, the farmer stood up, wiped his hands, then walked back to the truck, opened the map again. This time, he marked a point, then another, connecting them, not guessing, mapping, because what he had just found wasn't just one spot. It was part of something bigger. He looked out across the land again, from one edge to the other, like he could already see it. Not how it looked now, but how it would look later. Back in town, a man walked into the office, holding a folder. New report came in, he said. One of them looked up. What is it? The man placed it on the table. Survey update from the West Side region. They opened it casually, not expecting anything. Then their expressions changed. Slowly. Wait. Another leaned closer. That can't be right. The first one flipped the page. Checked again. Same result. Same location. Same land. The one they had just walked away from. Silence filled the room. Because now, the numbers didn't match their decision. And that meant they had missed something. Something important. Back at the field, the farmer stood still, looking out across everything. Because he already knew what they were just starting to realize. The report didn't leave the table. No one pushed it aside. No one changed the topic. Because now, it mattered. One of the men leaned back slowly. Eyes still on the paper. This is the same land, he said. Another nodded. Coordinates match. Silence. Because they all remembered it clearly. Dry soil. Cracked surface. Nothing useful. That's what they had seen. But this report said something else. Groundwater potential high. The words didn't make sense at first. High, one of them repeated. That's not what we saw. Another flipped the page. There's more, he said. Subsurface layer, rich soil composition. Now the room felt tighter. Because this wasn't a small mistake. This was a miss. And not just any miss. A costly one. Back at the field, the farmer stood near the same spot. He had marked several points now. Small flags placed in the ground. Each one carefully chosen. He walked between them slowly, measuring distance, checking alignment, not guessing, confirming, because what was under the surface was consistent, not random, and that changed everything. Back in the office, one of the men stood up suddenly. We need to go back. The others didn't argue, because they were thinking the same thing. If this is real. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. They all knew. The value of that land was no longer what they thought. It was more. Much more. Back at the field, the farmer placed the last marker, then stepped back, looked at the full layout, from edge to edge. The pattern was clear now, and so was the plan. In the distance, a truck appeared, coming down the road. Slow. Approaching. The farmer didn't move. He just watched. Because he knew who it was, and why they were coming back. The truck slowed as it reached the edge of the field. Then stopped. Dust settled behind it. The doors opened. One by one. They stepped out. The same men. Same shoes. Same confident posture. But not the same expressions. This time, they weren't smiling. They walked across the land again. Slower now. More careful. looking at everything they had ignored before. The ground, the texture, the slight changes in color, details they had missed. The farmer stood where he was. Didn't walk toward them. Didn't greet them. Just watched. One of the men stopped a few feet away. "We need to talk," he said. The farmer nodded once. They looked around the field. Then back at him. "We reviewed new data," another said. The farmer didn't respond, because he already knew. This land might be more valuable than we thought. A pause. "Might be?" the farmer asked calmly. The man hesitated, then corrected himself. "It is." Silence. Because now the truth was clear. The same land they had called worthless was suddenly important. Very important. "We'd like to make a new offer," one of them said. "Higher this time. Much higher." The farmer looked at them. Same calm expression. "What changed?" he asked. The men exchanged quick glances. "New information," one replied. The farmer nodded slightly. "I had the same information yesterday." That line hit differently, because it exposed everything. They hadn't discovered something new. They had missed something obvious. "We can make this worth your time," another added. Numbers were mentioned. Big ones. Serious ones. The kind that usually ended conversations quickly. But not this time. The farmer looked across the land. Then back at them. "I'm not selling," he said. Silence. Because they weren't expecting that. "You don't understand," one of them said quickly. "This is a very strong offer." The farmer nodded. "I understand." "Then why refuse?" The farmer looked at the marked points in the ground. Then said, "Because I'm not done with it." That answer changed everything. Because now they weren't just trying to buy land. They were trying to catch up. And they were already behind. The offers didn't stop there. They just kept getting higher. The men stayed longer this time. No quick decisions. No dismissive tone. Just numbers. "Name your price," one of them said. The farmer didn't answer. He looked across the field instead. At the markers. At the lines he had already mapped. Because to him, this wasn't just land anymore. It was a plan. "We can close this today," another man added. Fast. Simple. Profitable. Everything they hadn't offered before. The farmer finally looked at them. "Yesterday," he said, "you didn't want it." Silence. "Today," he continued, "you don't want to lose it." The words landed hard, because they were true. The men shifted slightly. "This is business," one replied. The farmer nodded. "I know." Then he added, "And I've already started." They followed his gaze. Across the field, where a small drilling setup now stood. Not large, not loud, but active. One of the men frowned. "You've already begun?" The farmer nodded once. "Yesterday." Again. That timing. Because while they had walked away, he had moved forward. A worker near the setup signaled something. The machine slowed, then stopped. Everyone turned, watching. The worker checked the ground, then looked up, nodded. That was enough. Because the confirmation didn't need words. The farmer didn't react. He just looked back at the men. "Come. You're late," he said. Silence. Because now there was no negotiation, only realization. They hadn't just undervalued the land. They had lost the chance to be part of it. And that chance wasn't coming back. The offers stopped, not because they ran out of money, but because they ran out of time. No one spoke for a moment. The wind moved lightly across the field, dust settling around the markers. The men looked at the drilling setup, then at the ground, then back at the farmer. Everything they needed to know was already in front of them. One of them finally said, If we had known. The farmer didn't let him finish. You did, he said calmly. Silence. Because that was the truth. They had walked the same land, seen the same soil, but they had decided too fast. Another man stepped forward. More careful now. We can still work something out, he said. The farmer shook his head slightly. I already am. He turned toward the field, toward the work that had already begun. Because, for him, this was never about selling. It was about building. Back in town, the same report sat on the table, still open, still unread by anyone new. Because now, the news had already spread. People were talking. That land wasn't empty. They missed it. He didn't. And just like that, the story changed. Not about worthless land anymore, but about the one person who saw its value first. Back at the field, the men stood a little longer, not negotiating, not offering, just looking. Because now, they weren't buyers anymore. They were observers. And that's the difference. The farmer walked past them, not stopping, not looking back, because the decision had already been made. And in the end, they didn't just misjudge the land. They misjudged the person standing on it. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our YouTube family.